I found the pills missing on a Tuesday morning, same Tuesday I was supposed to drive to physical therapy for my back. Been 3 months since the herniated disc, 3 months of walking like an old man at 47, 3 months of those little white pills being the only thing standing between me and wanting to put my fist through the drywall. The bottle sat empty on my nightstand where I'd left it half full the night before. I shook it anyway, heard nothing but the rattle of my own stupidity for not seeing this coming sooner, for not wanting to see it. "Sarah!" I called downstairs, but she'd already left for her shift at the hospital. Night nurse, 12 hours of dealing with other people's pain while I sat here drowning in my own. The house felt too quiet, that kind of quiet that makes you hear your own heartbeat in your ears. I knew it was Tyler before I even checked the security cameras. Had to be. Katie was only 14 and scared of her own shadow half the time. Wouldn't know what to do with pain medication if it came with instructions. But Tyler, my 19-year-old son who'd been finding himself for the past 2 years while living in our basement and burning through our grocery budget. Tyler who thought I didn't notice the way his pupils looked like pinpricks some days and saucers on others. The camera system had been Sarah's idea after the break-ins started happening around the neighborhood. For peace of mind, she'd said, and I'd grumbled about the cost, but installed them anyway because that's what you do when your wife asks for something reasonable and you've got the skills to make it happen. 25 years in construction, I could wire a house blindfolded. I pulled up the footage on my phone, scrolling back to around 2 a.m. There he was, clear as day in the infrared, creeping up the stairs like some kind of ghost. Moving, careful, practiced. This wasn't his first time. The time showed him in our bedroom for exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. I watched him rifle through Sarah's jewelry box first, probably looking for cash, then move to my nightstand. He knew exactly which drawer, exactly where the bottle would be. My hands started shaking as I watched him pour pills into his palm, counting them out like a pharmacist. But it was what happened next that made my stomach drop into my boots. The kid stood there for a full minute, just staring at those pills in his hand, and for a second, just a second, I thought maybe he'd put them back. Maybe some part of the son I'd raised was still in there fighting. Instead, he dry swallowed 3 of them right there in my bedroom. I had to watch it twice to make sure I wasn't seeing things. My boy, the kid who used to cry when he accidentally stepped on ants, standing in my bedroom at 2 in the morning, stealing my medication and taking it like it was candy. The kid I'd taught to throw a curveball, who'd helped me rebuild the deck last summer, even though he complained the whole time, who still sometimes forgot and called me daddy when he was really tired. The phone felt heavy in my hands as I scrolled through more footage. This went back weeks, maybe months. Always the same routine, always between 1 and 3 a.m. when he thought we were asleep. Sometimes he took pills, sometimes just cash from Sarah's purse or loose change from my dresser. Small amounts, nothing we'd miss right away. But we had missed it. I had missed it. All those times I'd thought I was losing my mind, miscounting pills or misplacing a $20 bill. All those times Sarah had asked if I'd seen her grocery money, and I'd assumed she'd spent it and forgotten. All those nights I'd laid awake in pain, rationing pills because I was afraid of running out before my next appointment, while my own son was helping himself to my prescription like it was a communal medicine cabinet. I called Dr. Fauci. Patterson's office first, explained the situation to his nurse. She sounded tired, like this wasn't the first time she'd dealt with family members stealing pain medication. "Mr. Coleman, you'll need to file a police report if you want us to authorize an early refill. It's policy." Police report? Against my own son? The words felt like swallowing glass. I'd never called the cops on family before, never thought I'd be the kind of father who'd have to. But here I was, sitting in my kitchen with my back screaming and my phone in my hand, trying to decide if I was going to destroy my boy's future over a bottle of pills. I tried calling Tyler instead, straight to voicemail. "This is Tyler. You know what to do." Same message he'd had since high school, all casual confidence and that little smirk I could hear in his voice. "Tyler, it's Dad. Call me back. We need to talk." I hung up and immediately called again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. On the fourth try, he picked up. "Jesus, Dad, what's the emergency?" "Where are you?" "Out. Why?" The casualness in his voice made my jaw clench. Like this was just another Tuesday. Like he hadn't been systematically robbing his own parents for months. "I need you to come home." "Can't right now. I'm with Derek, where—" "I know about the pills, Tyler." Silence. Long enough that I thought had hung up. Then, quiet. "What pills?" "Don't. Just don't. I've got it all on camera. Come home." More silence. I could hear voices in the background, laughter, someone playing music too loud. The sound of kids who didn't have jobs or responsibilities, or parents who counted pills before bed. "I'll be there in an hour," he said finally. "Now, Tyler." The line went dead. I spent the next hour pacing the kitchen, my back shooting fire up my spine every time I turned too fast. Sarah wouldn't be home until 7 a.m., still had 6 hours left on her shift. Part of me was grateful. This needed to be between Tyler and me first, father to son, before we brought his mother into it. But another part of me wanted her here, wanted someone who might know what the hell I was supposed to do with this. Sarah was the one with the medical training, the one who understood addiction as a disease instead of a moral failing. I still thought of it as weakness, as choice, as my boy deciding that getting high was more important than his family. Maybe that made me old-fashioned. Maybe that made me part of the problem. Tyler showed up 47 minutes later, walking through the front door like he owned the place. Same confident stride he'd had since he was 12, same way of taking up space that reminded me of myself at that age. But his eyes gave him away. Red-rimmed and glassy, pupils too small for the bright kitchen lights. "You look like hell," I said. He shrugged, dropped his keys on the counter. "Thanks. Really feeling the father-son love here." "Sit down." "I'd rather stand." I said, "Sit down." Something in my voice must have cut through whatever he was on, because he sat. Folded himself into the kitchen chair across from me, all sharp elbows and defensive posture. When had he gotten so thin? When had the kid who used to demolish entire pizzas turned into this collection of angles and shadows? I pulled out my phone, opened the camera app. "You want to tell me what this is?" He watched himself on the screen, watched himself counting out pills in my bedroom. His face didn't change, didn't show surprise or shame or even acknowledgement, just watched like he was looking at someone else entirely. "Well," I said. "Well, what?" "You're stealing from your own family, Tyler, from your parents. You took my pain medication, and I watched you swallow 3 pills standing right there in my bedroom." He leaned back in the chair, arms crossed. "So, what do you want? An apology?" The casualness of it hit me like a slap. I want an explanation. I want to know when my son became a thief. Your son became a lot of things, Dad. Maybe you should pay attention sometime. Don't you dare turn this around on me. You're the one stealing pills. You're the one creeping around the house in the middle of the night like a burglar. Like a burglar? Tyler laughed, but there wasn't any humor in it. This is my house too, isn't it? My family too? Thought we were all about sharing and caring and family values? Family values don't include stealing medication from your father's bedroom. No, but they include ignoring your kid for 2 years while you focus on work and your back problems and pretending everything's fine. I felt my hands clench into fists under the table. I work 60 hours a week to keep this family afloat. I've been dealing with chronic pain for 3 months. That doesn't give you the right to steal from me. Right, Tyler said. Everything's about you. Your pain, your work, your problems. When's the last time you asked me how I'm doing, Dad? When's the last time you gave a shit about anything I was going through? I give a shit about you being a drug addict living in my basement. The words came out louder than I'd intended, bounced off the kitchen walls like a physical thing. Tyler flinched, actually flinched. And for a second, I saw him at 8 years old again, the way he'd look when I'd raise my voice about homework or chores. "There it is," he said quietly. "Drug addict. That's what you think of me. What else am I supposed to think? You're stealing pills, you're high right now, I'm in pain too, Dad." That stopped me cold. The way he said it, so quiet, I almost missed it. Like he was telling me a secret he'd been carrying alone. What kind of pain? Tyler looked down at his hands, those long fingers that used to be so good at building things, at fixing broken toys and helping me with projects around the house. The kind that makes you want to disappear. I felt something shift in my chest, some wall I'd built starting to crack. "Tyler, if you're having problems, if something's wrong, you can talk to me. You can talk to your mother. We're your parents." "Are you?" He looked up at me then, and his eyes were different, younger, more like the kid I remembered. "Because it feels like you've been waiting for me to screw up so you'd have an excuse to give up on me entirely. That's not true, isn't it? When's the last time you said you were proud of me? When's the last time you acted like you actually wanted me around instead of just tolerating me because I'm your obligation?" I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it, because he was right, and we both knew it. Ever since he'd graduated high school and decided not to go to college, ever since he'd been drifting from job to job without any clear direction, I'd been disappointed, and I'd let that disappointment color every interaction we had. "I am proud of you," I said, but it sounded weak even to me. "For what? What exactly are you proud of?" I scrambled for an answer, for some recent accomplishment or moment where Tyler had impressed me. But all I could think of were the things that frustrated me about him. The job he'd quit last month, the friends who came around looking like trouble, the way he slept until noon and stayed up all night playing video games. "You're a good kid," I said finally. "I'm 19, Dad, and I'm stealing your pills. When exactly does the good kid expire?" I rubbed my face with both hands, felt the stubble and the exhaustion of too many sleepless nights. "What do you want me to say, Tyler? That it's okay? That I understand? Because I don't understand. I don't understand how we got here." "We got here because you checked out," he said. "We got here because you decided I was a disappointment before I even had a chance to figure out who I was supposed to be. That's not. It is, though. You compare me to yourself at my age, and I don't measure up. You compare me to your friends' kids who are in college or have careers, and I don't measure up. You compare me to some idea of who you think I should be, and I definitely don't measure up." Tyler stood up from the table, started pacing the kitchen. His movements were jittery, restless, like he couldn't quite settle into his own skin. "So yeah, I started taking your pills. At first it was just curiosity, you know? You'd leave them sitting there, and I'd wonder what it was like to not feel anything for a while." Tyler. And it worked. For a few hours, everything just went quiet. All the noise in my head about being a failure and a disappointment and a waste of space, all of it just stopped. So I kept taking them. He turned to face me, and I could see tears starting to form in his eyes. And then I started selling them because Derek said I could make good money, and I thought maybe if I had some cash, I could get my own place, and you wouldn't have to look at me every day and remember what a screw-up your son turned out to be. The kitchen felt too small suddenly, like the walls were pressing in on both of us. I wanted to stand up, wanted to go to him, but my back wouldn't cooperate, and I wasn't sure he'd want me to anyway. "You're not a screw-up," I said. Tyler laughed again, that same bitter sound. "Come on, Dad, we both know that's not true. You're 19 years old. You're supposed to be figuring things out. You're supposed to make mistakes. Not these kinds of mistakes, not stealing from your own family. I watched him wipe his eyes with the back of his hand, trying to hide the tears like he'd been doing since he was 12, and decided crying wasn't manly. Like I'd taught him, whether I meant to or not. "When did you start feeling this way?" I asked. "When did you start thinking you were a disappointment?" Tyler stopped pacing, leaned against the counter. "I don't know, sophomore year maybe? When you stopped coming to my baseball games?" That hit me like a physical blow. I was working, Tyler. I was trying to get the business established. I know. I get it. Work was important. More important than watching me strike out in the bottom of the ninth. That's not fair, isn't it? You made it to maybe 5 games my whole senior year. And when you were there, you spent half the time on your phone dealing with work stuff. I remembered those games. Remembered feeling torn between supporting my son and handling the constant crisis calls from job sites. The business had been struggling. I'd been putting in 14-hour days just to keep us afloat financially. But Tyler was right. I'd made choices about where to put my attention, and he'd felt the absence. "I was trying to provide for this family," I said. "I didn't need you to provide, Dad. I needed you to show up." The words hung in the air between us like an accusation, and maybe they were. Maybe I'd spent so much time trying to be a good provider that I'd forgotten how to be a good father. "What about now?" I asked. "What do you need now?" Tyler looked at me for a long moment, like he was trying to decide whether I was serious or just saying what I thought he wanted to hear. "Help," he said finally. "I need help. I can't stop taking the pills on my own. And I can't keep stealing from you, but I don't know what else to do." The honesty in his voice broke something open in my chest. This was my boy asking for help, maybe for the first time since he was a little kid. And all I wanted to do was fix it, to make it better, the way I used to when his problems were scraped knees and hurt feelings. "Okay," I said. "What kind of help? I don't know. Rehab, maybe? Therapy? I looked it up online, but everything costs money we don't have. We'll figure out the money. Dad, you can't even afford to miss work with your back problems. How are you going to pay for rehab?" He was right about that too. The medical bills from my injury had already strained our budget, and Sarah's hospital salary only went so far. But we'd figure it out somehow. We had to. "That's my problem to solve," I said. "Your job is to get better." Tyler nodded, but I could see the doubt in his eyes, the fear that this was just another promise I'd make and then break when reality set in. "I need to ask you something," I said, "and I need you to be honest with me." "Okay. How bad is it? The addiction, I mean. Are you just taking pills, or is there other stuff?" Tyler's face went pale. "What do you mean, other stuff?" "I mean cocaine, heroin, meth. I mean, are we talking about prescription pills, or are we talking about street drugs?" "Just pills," he said quickly. "Just yours, and sometimes Derek gets them from other people, but it's just pills." I felt some of the tension leave my shoulders. Pills were bad enough, but at least we weren't dealing with needle drugs or the kind of street dealer situations that got kids killed. "How many are you taking a day?" "I don't know. Depends." "Tyler, maybe 6 or 8, sometimes more if I can get them." 6 or 8 pills a day. No wonder he looked like he was wasting away. No wonder the bottle had been emptying faster than it should have been. "Jesus Christ," I muttered. "I know it's a lot. I know it's too much. But when I try to stop, I get sick, like really sick, shaking and sweating and throwing up." "How long since you've had any?" Tyler checked his phone. "About 6 hours." As if on cue, I noticed his hands starting to tremble slightly. The beginning of withdrawal, probably. I'd seen it on construction sites over the years. Guys who'd gotten hooked on pain pills after injuries and couldn't function without them. "Are you going to be okay today, without them?" "I don't know. Probably not." I thought about my own empty pill bottle upstairs, about the appointment with Dr. Sloan. Patterson I'd have to make, about the police report I'd have to file to get an early refill, about having to explain to a cop that my son was an addict. "I've got to file a police report," I said, "for the insurance and the doctor, but I'm not pressing charges." Tyler's eyes went wide. "You're calling the cops?" "I have to. It's the only way I can get more medication. But I'll make it clear that this is a medical issue, not a criminal one." "Dad, if there's a police report, that goes on my record. That could affect jobs, college applications, everything." "Tyler, you need help, real help. And sometimes getting help means dealing with consequences." I could see him starting to panic, that jittery energy ramping up as the reality of the situation hit him. What if they arrest me? What if they search my room and find... Find what? He stopped talking, but the damage was done. There was more. Of course there was more. "Tyler, what else is in your room?" "Nothing. Just some pills Derek gave me." "How many pills?" "Not many." "How many?" "Maybe 30 or 40. 30 or 40 pills that didn't belong to him, that he'd either bought or stolen or gotten from God knows where. Enough to get him arrested for possession with intent to distribute if the cops decided to be hard about it. "Go get them," I said. "What?" "Go get the pills and bring them here, right now." Tyler started to argue, then saw something in my face that made him change his mind. He disappeared toward the basement, came back 5 minutes later with a plastic baggie full of white pills. Different shapes and sizes, different manufacturers. A whole pharmacy's worth of stolen medication. Jesus, Tyler! I took the bag from him, felt the weight of it. Where did all this come from? Different places. Derek knows people, other kids who take their parents' pills. It's like a trading thing. A trading thing? Like they were swapping baseball cards instead of controlled substances? I thought about other parents in other kitchens, discovering empty pill bottles and wondering if they were losing their minds. How long has this been going on? A few months, since around Christmas. Christmas? I tried to remember Christmas, tried to remember if Tyler had seemed different. But the holidays had been a blur of work stress and family obligations, and my back starting to act up. I'd been distracted, focused on getting through the season. "Why didn't you come to me?" I asked. "Why didn't you tell me you were struggling?" Tyler looked at me like I'd asked why he didn't just grow wings and fly. "When, Dad? When would I have told you? During one of our deep heart-to-heart conversations that never happen? During family dinner that we don't have because you're always working late?" He was right again. When was the last time Tyler and I had had a real conversation about anything meaningful? When was the last time I'd asked him how he was feeling about anything more serious than what he wanted for dinner? You could have told your mother. Mom's got enough to worry about. She works 12-hour shifts dealing with actual sick people. I didn't want to add to her stress. So you decided to steal pills and sell drugs instead? I decided to handle my own problems instead of being another burden on this family. The word burden hit me like a punch to the gut. That's what he thought of himself. That's how I'd made him feel. "You're not a burden, Tyler. You're my son." Same thing lately. I wanted to argue with him, wanted to tell him he was wrong. But the truth was, I had been treating him like a burden. Every conversation about his future, every lecture about getting a job or going to school, every disappointed look when he slept past noon, it all added up to the same message, that he was falling short, that he was a problem to be solved instead of a person to be loved. My phone buzzed with a text message. "How's your back today? Remember you have PT at 2. Physical therapy, with my stolen medication, with my son sitting across from me admitting he was addicted to pills, and I had a bag of controlled substances on my kitchen table. I need to call Dr. Patterson," I said, "and I need to call the police. But first, I need to know if you're going to be okay for the next few hours while we figure this out." Tyler was shaking more noticeably now, sweat starting to bead on his forehead despite the cool morning air. "I don't feel good." "How not good?" "Like I might throw up, like my skin is crawling." Withdrawal was starting. I'd seen it before, guys on the job who'd run out of pills and couldn't function. It got ugly fast. "Can you hold on until this afternoon? I'll call Dr. Patterson and see if he can help. Maybe prescribe something to make the withdrawal easier." "I don't know." Tyler doubled over suddenly, clutching his stomach. When he straightened up, his face was gray, and there was real fear in his eyes. "Dad, I think I need to go to the hospital." The words every parent dreads hearing. I was on my feet before I fully registered standing up, my back screaming in protest, but adrenaline overriding the pain. "What's wrong? What's happening?" "I can't breathe right. My chest feels tight and my heart's racing." I could see his pulse in his neck, fast and irregular. His breathing was shallow, quick pants like he'd been running. "Panic attack or withdrawal?" I asked. "I don't know. Both, maybe." I grabbed my keys from the counter, then hesitated. "Tyler, I need to ask you something, and I need the truth. Have you taken anything else today? Anything other than pills?" "No." "You're sure? Because if the doctors need to know what's in your system." "I'm sure, Dad. Just the pills I took last night." I believed him. He was scared enough to be honest, and the symptoms matched what I knew about opioid withdrawal. Still, the thought of walking into an emergency room with my son in this condition, of having to explain to medical professionals that my 19-year-old was addicted to prescription drugs, made my stomach turn. But this was my boy. Whatever embarrassment or shame I felt didn't matter compared to making sure he was okay. "Let's go," I said. Tyler stood up too fast and had to grab the counter for support. I put my arm around him, felt how thin he'd gotten, how fragile he seemed, despite being nearly as tall as me. "Dad," he said as we headed for the door. "Yeah? I'm sorry. For everything. For stealing from you, for lying, for being such a disappointment." I stopped walking, turned to look at him. "Tyler, you listen to me. You are not a disappointment. You're sick, and you need help, but you are not a disappointment. You're my son, and I love you." The words felt rusty coming out, like I hadn't said them in too long, which I probably hadn't. Even after all this? Especially after all this, because this is when you need me most. Tyler nodded, tears streaming down his face now. "I love you too, Dad." We made it to the truck before his knees buckled. The emergency room at County General was exactly what I'd expected. Fluorescent lights, plastic chairs, the smell of disinfectant and human desperation. Sarah worked here 3 nights a week, had told me stories about the overdoses and accidents and family crises that came through these doors. I'd never imagined I'd be here with my own family crisis. Tyler was shaking violently now, couldn't keep his hands still long enough to fill out the intake paperwork. I did it for him, checking boxes about drug use and medical history while he hunched over in the plastic chair next to me. "Previous addiction treatment?" the form asked. I left it blank. "Current medications." I wrote "stolen prescription opioids" and felt my face burn with shame. The triage nurse was professional but not unkind, took Tyler's vital signs and asked the same questions I'd been asking. How much? How often? How long? Tyler answered honestly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Well, get him back to see a doctor as soon as possible," she said. "In the meantime, try to keep him hydrated." We waited. Tyler curled up in his chair like a child, sweating through his t-shirt despite the air conditioning. Every few minutes he'd run to the bathroom and I'd hear him retching, then he'd come back looking worse than before. I texted Sarah. "At the hospital with Tyler, we'll explain later. He's okay, but we need to talk." She called immediately. "What happened? Is he hurt?" "He's not hurt, but he's sick. We'll talk when you get home." "Mike, tell me what's going on." I looked at Tyler, who was watching me with eyes that looked too old for his face. "He's been struggling with some things. We're getting him help." "What kind of things?" "The kind we should have seen coming." Sarah went quiet on the other end of the line. She was smart enough to read between the lines, experienced enough to know what struggling meant when it involved emergency room visits. "I'll be there as soon as I can get coverage for my shift," she said. "You don't have to." "Yes, I do. He's my son, too." After she hung up, Tyler and I sat in silence for a while. The waiting room was filling up with the usual mix of human misery. A construction worker with what looked like a broken arm, an elderly woman having chest pains, a mother with a feverish toddler. "Dad," Tyler said eventually. "Yeah? What happens next? After today, I mean." I'd been wondering the same thing. The immediate crisis was getting him medical help, making sure the withdrawal didn't kill him. But beyond that, we were in uncharted territory. "I don't know," I said. "We figure it out as we go. What if I can't get clean? What if I try rehab and it doesn't work? Then we try something else. What if I relapse? What if I steal from you again?" These were all possibilities I didn't want to think about, all scenarios that scared me more than I wanted to admit. But they were real questions that deserved honest answers. "Then we deal with that too," I said, "one day at a time." Tyler nodded, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. He didn't believe it would be that simple, and honestly, neither did I. Addiction wasn't something you solved with good intentions and family meetings. It was a disease that destroyed families, that turned good kids into thieves and liars. But he was still my son. That hadn't changed. "Tyler Coleman?" A nurse appeared in the doorway, clipboard in hand. Tyler started to stand, then swayed and had to sit back down. I helped him up, steadied him with one arm around his waist. "I can come with you," I said. "Would you?" The uncertainty in his voice broke my heart. When was the last time he'd asked me to stay with him for anything? Of course. The examination room was small and sterile, medical equipment I didn't recognize mounted on the walls. Tyler sat on the paper-covered table, while I took the plastic chair in the corner. Dr. Martinez was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 30s, with kind eyes and a direct manner that reminded me of Sarah. She asked the same questions again, but more detailed this time. How Tyler had started using, how much he was taking, what his withdrawal symptoms felt like. "The good news is this doesn't look like a life-threatening withdrawal," she said after examining him. "Your vital signs are elevated but stable. The bad news is you're going to feel pretty miserable for the next few days." "How miserable?" Tyler asked. "Flu symptoms, anxiety, insomnia, nausea. It peaks around day 3 and then gradually gets better." "Can you give him anything?" I asked. "To make it easier?" "We can help with some of the symptoms, anti-nausea medication, something for anxiety." But the safest approach is medical supervision, either inpatient or intensive outpatient treatment. Inpatient, rehab. The word carried weight I wasn't ready for. "What does that involve?" I asked. For someone Tyler's age, with his usage pattern, I'd recommend a 30-day residential program followed by outpatient therapy and support groups. 30 days! A month of my son being locked away somewhere, getting treatment I didn't understand for a disease I was still learning to accept as real. How much does something like that cost? Dr. Martinez's expression softened. She'd had this conversation before with other parents in other emergency rooms. "Most insurance plans cover addiction treatment. We have a social worker who can help you navigate the options." Insurance. I tried to remember what our policy covered, whether addiction treatment was included or considered a pre-existing condition or something they could deny. "What if we can't afford inpatient treatment?" Tyler asked. "There are outpatient programs, support groups, community resources. The important thing is getting started somewhere. But inpatient is better? For someone with your usage pattern and family situation, yes. It removes you from triggers and gives you 24-hour medical supervision during the worst of the withdrawal." Family situation. I wondered what she meant by that, what she'd observed in the 20 minutes she'd been talking to us that made her think our family situation was part of the problem. "Doctor," I said, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." How did this happen? How does a good kid from a good family end up addicted to pills? Dr. Martinez looked at Tyler, then back at me. "Addiction doesn't discriminate, Mr. Coleman. It affects people from all backgrounds, all socioeconomic levels. Often it starts with legitimate pain management and escalates from there." But Tyler wasn't prescribed these medications. He stole them. Self-medication is very common. especially among young people dealing with anxiety, depression, or other mental health issues. The pills provide temporary relief from emotional pain. Emotional pain? Like Tyler had said in the kitchen, the kind that makes you want to disappear. So this is my fault, I said, for not seeing that he was struggling. Mr. Coleman, addiction is a complex disease with multiple contributing factors. Blame isn't helpful here. What's helpful is getting Tyler the treatment he needs and rebuilding family communication and support systems. Rebuilding family communication. That was a polite way of saying we'd failed as parents, that our son had been in pain for months and we'd been too distracted or self-absorbed to notice. The social worker who came to talk to us was named Jennifer, a middle-aged woman with graying hair and the patient manner of someone who'd seen every variation of family crisis. She spread brochures across the small table in the corner of the room: treatment centers, support groups, financing options. The first step is detoxification, she explained. Tyler can do that here in the hospital or at a dedicated detox facility. Either way, it's typically 3 to 5 days of medical supervision. And then? Then you have options: 30-day residential treatment, intensive outpatient programs, or regular outpatient therapy combined with support group meetings. I looked at the brochures, all smiling faces and positive messaging about recovery and new beginnings. They looked expensive, even the ones that claimed to accept insurance. What do you recommend for Tyler's situation? Jennifer looked at Tyler, who was lying back on the examination table with his eyes closed. Given his age, the duration of his use, and the family dynamics involved, I'd recommend residential treatment. There it was again, family dynamics. Like we were a case study in dysfunction. What does that mean? I asked. It means Tyler would live at the treatment facility for 30 days, participating in individual and group therapy, medical monitoring, and educational programs about addiction and recovery. And family therapy? Usually included, yes. Addiction affects the whole family, and recovery requires everyone to learn new ways of communicating and supporting each other. Tyler opened his eyes, looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Dad, I can't afford 30 days of residential treatment. You don't need to afford it. That's my job. But the business is already struggling, and with your medical bills. Tyler, stop. This is not your responsibility. Jennifer pulled out a sheet of paper, started writing numbers. Most residential programs cost between $20,000 and $40,000 for 30 days. But with insurance coverage, your out-of-pocket expense could be as low as a few $1,000s, depending on your deductible and copay structure. A few $1,000s? That might as well have been a few million, given our current financial situation. The business had been slow since my injury, and we were already behind on the mortgage after 3 months of reduced income. What if we can't swing residential treatment? I asked. There are sliding scale programs, state-funded facilities, and intensive outpatient options that are more affordable. Tyler sat up on the examination table, swung his legs over the side. I don't want you guys to go into debt because of me. Maybe I can just do this on my own, cold turkey. Tyler, Jennifer said gently, given your usage pattern and the amount you've been taking, attempting detoxification without medical supervision could be dangerous. And the relapse rate for people who try to quit opioids on their own is over 90%. 90%. Those weren't odds I was willing to take with my son's life. We'll figure out the money, I said. Right now, I just want to know what's the best chance for Tyler to get clean and stay clean. Residential treatment followed by outpatient therapy and long-term support group participation. That combination gives him the best statistical chance of long-term recovery. I thought about our savings account, which was already depleted for medical bills, about the second mortgage we'd taken out to expand the business, about Sarah working extra shifts just to keep us afloat. Then I looked at Tyler, pale and shaking on the examination table, looking younger than his 19 years and more fragile than I'd ever seen him. Let's do it, I said. Tyler's eyes went wide. Dad, you can't afford? Let me worry about what I can afford. You worry about getting better. Jennifer nodded approvingly. I can make some calls, see what's available. Most residential programs have intake within 24 to 48 hours if there's a medical emergency. Is this a medical emergency? Given Tyler's withdrawal symptoms and the amount he's been using, yes, I'd classify this as urgent placement. Urgent placement. My son was an urgent placement. A kid so sick with addiction that he needed to be removed from his family and locked away for a month just to have a chance at getting clean. What happens right now? I asked. Today, I mean. We'll admit Tyler for detoxification, probably for 3 days. During that time, I'll work on finding him a residential program with an open bed. Tyler looked terrified. I have to stay here? In the hospital? The detox unit is separate from the main hospital, Jennifer explained. It's specifically designed for people going through withdrawal from drugs or alcohol. You'll have medical supervision and medication to help with the symptoms. What about work? Tyler asked. I'm supposed to start a new job next week. It was the first I'd heard about a new job. For a moment, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe he'd been trying to turn things around. Maybe this was just a setback on the road to getting his life together. What kind of job? I asked. Landscaping crew. Derek's uncle owns a company, said he'd give me a chance. Derek again. Derek, who apparently had an uncle in the landscaping business and also knew how to get prescription pills from other kids. I was starting to think Derek was a bigger part of the problem than Tyler had let on. Tyler, I said carefully, you can't work while you're in treatment, and honestly, you probably shouldn't be working with Derek or anyone connected to Derek right now. Why not? Because Derek is part of your drug circle. Recovery means changing your people, places, and things. That was something I'd heard at a construction site once from a guy who'd gotten clean after years of drinking. People, places, and things. Everything that enabled the addiction had to go. Derek's my best friend. Derek is the person who taught you how to sell pills. Tyler's face flushed with anger. Derek didn't make me do anything. He was just trying to help me make some money. By selling drugs? By surviving. You think I wanted to be stealing from my own family? You think I was proud of that? His voice was getting louder, drawing attention from the nurses outside. I could see Jennifer making notes on her clipboard, probably documenting family conflict for Tyler's treatment file. I think Derek is a bad influence, I said. I think you need friends who aren't using drugs. So now I'm supposed to give up my friends too, on top of everything else? If your friends are part of the problem, yes. Tyler stood up from the examination table, started pacing the small room. This is exactly what I was talking about earlier. You want to control everything, fix everything, make all the decisions. I want to save your life. By taking away everything that matters to me? Tyler, Jennifer interjected, this is actually a very common concern in early recovery. Many people feel like they're losing their identity along with their addiction. But the goal isn't to take things away permanently, it's to help you build a life where you don't need drugs to cope. Tyler stopped pacing, looked at her with something that might have been hope. How long before I can see my friends again? That depends on your recovery program and how well you're doing. Some people maintain friendships with people who are also in recovery. Others find they need to make completely new social connections. What if Derek gets clean too? I wanted to say that Derek getting clean was about as likely as me winning the lottery, but I bit my tongue. This wasn't about Derek. This was about Tyler. Recovery is an individual process, Jennifer said diplomatically. Right now, you need to focus on your own sobriety. Tyler sat back down, suddenly looking exhausted. How did everything get so fucked up? Language, I said automatically, then caught myself. My 19-year-old son was admitting himself to drug treatment, and I was worried about his language. Sorry, Tyler said, but not like he meant it. Jennifer stood up, gathered her brochures. I'm going to make some calls about residential placement. In the meantime, we'll get Tyler admitted to the detox unit and started on a medication protocol to ease his withdrawal symptoms. What kind of medication? I asked. Probably Suboxone or Methadone to prevent severe withdrawal, plus anti-anxiety medication and something for nausea. More drugs to treat the drugs? It seemed counterintuitive, but what did I know about addiction medicine? Is that safe? Much safer than trying to detox on your own, Jennifer said. These medications are specifically designed to ease withdrawal symptoms while reducing the risk of complications. After Jennifer left, Tyler and I sat in silence for a while. The adrenaline of the morning was wearing off, leaving me feeling hollow and exhausted. My back was screaming from the stress and lack of medication, but that seemed trivial compared to what Tyler was going through. "Dad?" Tyler said eventually. "Yeah? Are you disappointed in me?" The question hung in the air between us like something physical. Was I disappointed? Yes. Was I angry? Yes. Was I scared? Absolutely. But more than anything, I was sad. Sad that my son had been in pain and I hadn't seen it. Sad that he'd felt like he had to steal and lie instead of asking for help. Sad that we'd let our relationship deteriorate to the point where addiction seemed like his only option. "I'm disappointed that you felt like you couldn't come to me," I said, finally. "I'm disappointed that you've been suffering alone. But I'm not disappointed in you as a person." Tyler nodded, tears starting again. "I wanted to tell you. So many times I almost did, but I was afraid you'd think I was weak." "Tyler, addiction isn't weakness. It's a disease. Do you really believe that?" I thought about it. A week ago, I would have said addiction was a choice, a moral failing, a lack of willpower. But looking at my son now, seeing the physical symptoms of withdrawal and the genuine anguish in his eyes, it was hard to maintain that belief. "I'm learning to believe it," I said. A different nurse came in to take Tyler to the detox unit. She was older, with gray hair and the no-nonsense manner of someone who'd seen everything twice. "Dad can walk you up," she said, "but then he'll need to leave. Visiting hours in detox are limited to help patients focus on their recovery." "When can I see him again?" I asked. "Tomorrow afternoon, 2 to 4 p.m., and there's a family orientation session tomorrow evening at 7. Family orientation. More therapy, more learning about addiction and recovery, and rebuilding relationships. Part of me resented it. I'd been working 60-hour weeks to support this family, dealing with chronic pain and financial stress, and now I was supposed to spend my evenings in therapy sessions too? But looking at Tyler, I knew I'd do whatever it took. The detox unit was on the 3rd floor, behind locked doors and security cameras. It looked more like a minimum security prison than a medical facility. Industrial carpeting, reinforced windows, everything designed to be functional rather than comfortable. Tyler's room was small and sparse, just a bed, a dresser, and a plastic chair. No television, no decorations, nothing that might provide distraction from the process of getting clean. "This is it?" Tyler asked, looking around the room like he couldn't quite believe this was where he'd be spending the next few days. "It's temporary," I said, "just until the worst of the withdrawal is over." Tyler sat on the bed, bounced once to test the mattress. "Dad, what if I can't do this? What if I'm not strong enough?" "You are strong enough. You're stronger than you know. How can you be sure?" "Because you're my son. Because you asked for help. Because you're here instead of running away." Tyler looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "I love you, Dad." "I love you too, son." The words felt rusty but real, maybe more real than they'd felt in years. We'd gotten so caught up in the day-to-day frustrations and disappointments that we'd forgotten to say the basic truth, that we loved each other, no matter what. I hugged him before I left, felt how thin he'd gotten, how much he'd aged in the past year without me noticing. When I stepped back, there were tears in both our eyes. "I'll see you tomorrow," I said. "Dad, will you tell Mom I'm sorry?" "You can tell her yourself. She'll be here tomorrow." The drive home felt longer than usual, like the morning's events had somehow stretched time and distance. I kept thinking about Tyler alone in that sterile room, going through withdrawal, while I went home to an empty house and tried to figure out how to pay for residential treatment. My phone rang as I pulled into the driveway. Dr. Patterson's office. Mr. Coleman, this is Nancy from Dr. Patterson's office. You called about stolen medication? Right, the police report. The whole reason this day had started, finding my empty pill bottle and discovering my son was addicted to opioids. Yes, I said, but the situation has changed. My son is in the hospital now, getting treatment. I'm sorry to hear that. Do you still need to file a report for insurance purposes? I thought about it. The pills were gone, Tyler was getting help, and filing a police report would just create more complications for him down the road. No, I said. I don't think that's necessary anymore. Okay, Mr. Coleman, but if you change your mind, you'll need to come in and fill out the paperwork in person. After I hung up, I sat in my truck for a few minutes, trying to process everything that had happened. This morning, I'd been a father whose son had stolen his pain medication. Now, I was a father whose son was in drug treatment, and somehow, that felt like progress. The house was quiet when I went inside. That same oppressive silence that had greeted me when I discovered the empty pill bottle. But it felt different now, less like emptiness and more like potential. I called Sarah at work. "How is he?" she asked before I could say hello. "He's in detox. He'll be there for 3 days, then hopefully residential treatment for 30 days. Jesus, Mike, 30 days. The social worker says it's his best chance for long-term recovery. How much is this gonna cost? I don't know yet. A few $1,000s out of pocket, maybe more. Sarah was quiet for a moment. We don't have a few $1,000s. Well, figure it out. How? We're already behind on the mortgage. Your medical bills are piling up, and I can't work any more hours without falling over. She was right, of course. But what was the alternative? Let Tyler try to get clean on his own and watch him fail? Let our son become one of the statistics Jennifer had mentioned, the 90% who relapse without proper treatment? We'll take out another loan if we have to, I said. Against what? We've already mortgaged everything we own. Then we'll sell something. The boat, my tools, whatever it takes. Mike, be realistic. This could bankrupt us. And not treating Tyler could kill him. That stopped the argument, because we both knew it was true. We'd both seen the news stories, read the statistics about overdose deaths among young people. Addiction was a disease that killed, and our son had it. You're right, Sarah said finally. We'll figure it out. But Mike, this isn't just about money. This is about our family, about how we got here. I know. Do you? Because I've been thinking about this all day, and I keep coming back to the same question. How did we not see this? How did our son become addicted to drugs, and we had no idea? It was the question I'd been avoiding, the one that cut deeper than financial worry or treatment logistics. How had we failed Tyler so completely that he'd turned to stolen pills for relief? I don't know, I said, but I'm going to find out. There's a family orientation session tomorrow night. I'll be there. Good. Tyler needs to see that we're both committed to this. Mike, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Okay, are you going to be able to handle this? The therapy, the family sessions, learning about addiction? Because I know how you feel about that kind of thing. She was right to ask. I'd always been skeptical of therapy, of the idea that talking about problems could solve them. I believed in action, in fixing things with your hands and your will. But Tyler's addiction wasn't something I could fix with tools and determination. I'll handle it, I said, whatever it takes. Even if it means admitting you made mistakes as a father? That one hit home. Because I had made mistakes, more than I wanted to admit. I'd been so focused on providing financially that I'd neglected to provide emotionally. I'd been so worried about Tyler's future that I'd ignored his present. I'd been so afraid of enabling him that I'd stopped supporting him entirely. Yeah, I said, even then. After we hung up, I went upstairs to our bedroom, to the nightstand where my empty pill bottle still sat. I picked it up, shook it one more time, heard the hollow rattle that had started this whole day. Then I walked to Tyler's room, stood in the doorway looking at his unmade bed, his clothes scattered on the floor, his computer still humming on the desk. The room smelled like him, that particular mixture of laundry detergent and teenage boy that had been constant since he hit puberty. On his desk, next to the computer, was a framed picture from his high school graduation. Tyler in his cap and gown, Sarah and me on either side of him, all of us smiling at the camera. He looked so young in the picture, so full of potential and promise. I picked up the frame, studied our faces. When had that hopeful kid turned into someone who stole pills just to get through the day? When had I stopped seeing him as a son and started seeing him as a problem? My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Tyler. They gave me a phone for emergencies. I wanted to say thank you for today, for not giving up on me." I typed back, "Never. We're going to get through this together." "I'm scared, Dad." "Me too, but we'll figure it out." "I love you." "I love you too, son." I put the phone down and looked around Tyler's room again, seeing it differently now. The unmade bed wasn't laziness, it was depression. The scattered clothes weren't carelessness. They were the chaos of someone whose life was falling apart. How had I missed it all? The next 24 hours passed in a blur of phone calls and paperwork. Jennifer called with updates on residential placement. There was an opening at a facility about an hour away, but it would cost more than our insurance was willing to cover. There was a state-funded program with a 3-week waiting list. There was a faith-based program that was affordable but required Tyler to commit to their religious philosophy. I spent the afternoon at the bank trying to figure out how to finance addiction treatment on a construction worker's salary. The loan officer was sympathetic but realistic. Our debt-to-income ratio was already stretched thin, and another loan would require collateral we didn't have. Sarah came home early from her shift, looking exhausted and worried. She'd spent her break researching addiction and recovery, reading about success rates and relapse statistics and family therapy approaches. "How's Tyler doing?" she asked. "I haven't heard from him since yesterday. They don't allow much contact during detox. And treatment options?" I showed her the brochures Jennifer had given me, explained the costs and waiting lists and requirements. Sarah studied them with the same methodical attention she brought to her nursing charts. "The faith-based program isn't necessarily bad," she said finally. "A lot of people find spiritual support helpful in recovery. Tyler's not religious. Tyler's also never been through addiction treatment. Maybe he needs to be open to different approaches." She was probably right. At this point, we needed to focus on what worked, not what fit our preconceptions about what Tyler needed. The family orientation session was held in the hospital's conference room, a sterile space with fluorescent lighting and motivational posters about healing and hope. There were maybe a dozen other families there, all of us looking shell-shocked and uncertain. Jennifer led the session, explaining addiction as a brain disease, describing how opioids literally rewired neural pathways and created physical dependence. She showed us charts and graphs about relapse rates and recovery timelines, talked about enabling versus supporting, about tough love versus compassionate boundaries. "Addiction affects the whole family system," she said. "Recovery requires everyone to learn new ways of relating to each other." A woman in the front row raised her hand. "What if our son doesn't want treatment? What if he says he can quit on his own?" "Motivation for treatment often develops during the treatment process," Jennifer said. "Many people enter treatment reluctantly and discover they actually want recovery once they begin to feel better." "What about relapse?" asked a man about my age. "What happens if they get clean and then start using again?" "Relapse is common in early recovery," Jennifer said. "It doesn't mean treatment failed or that your child is hopeless. It means they need additional support or a different approach." Sarah took notes during the entire session, writing down resources and phone numbers and things to remember. I mostly just listened, trying to absorb information that challenged everything I thought I knew about addiction and parenting. After the session, we were allowed to visit Tyler for an hour. He looked better than he had the day before, less shaky, more alert, though still pale and thin. "How are you feeling?" Sarah asked, hugging him tightly. "Better. The medication helps with the worst of it." "Have you decided about treatment programs?" I asked. Tyler nodded. "I want to try the faith-based program." "I know I'm not religious, but maybe that's part of what I need to figure out." Sarah and I exchanged glances. Neither of us had expected that response. "Are you sure?" Sarah asked. "You've never shown much interest in religion." "I've never shown much interest in getting clean either," Tyler said. "Maybe it's time to try some new things." The program was called New Horizons, and it was located in the mountains about 90 minutes from our house. I drove up there the next day to tour the facility and meet with the intake coordinator. It was nothing like what I'd expected. Instead of institutional buildings and locked doors, it looked more like a summer camp. Log cabins scattered around a lake, hiking trails through the woods, a main lodge with a stone fireplace and comfortable seating areas. "We believe in treating the whole person," explained Maria, the intake coordinator. "Physical, emotional, and spiritual recovery." She showed me the dormitory where Tyler would sleep, the therapy rooms where he'd attend individual and group sessions, the chapel where they held daily meditation and prayer services. "What if my son isn't comfortable with the religious aspect?" I asked. "Participation in spiritual activities is encouraged but not required," Maria said. "We have clients from many different faith backgrounds, including some who consider themselves agnostic or atheist." "And the cost?" Maria handed me a financial worksheet. "With your insurance coverage and our sliding scale program, your monthly cost would be about $800. $800 a month for 30 days. Still more than we could afford, but manageable if I picked up some side jobs and Sarah worked extra shifts." "When could Tyler start?" "We have an opening next Monday if he completes detox successfully." I called Sarah from the parking lot. "I think this is the right place." "What's it like?" "Peaceful, professional, like somewhere Tyler could actually get better." "Then let's do it." Tyler was discharged from detox on Friday afternoon, 3 days after he'd entered. The withdrawal symptoms had largely subsided, replaced by what the doctors called post-acute withdrawal syndrome, fatigue, depression, anxiety, and what Tyler described as feeling like his emotions were wrapped in cotton. "Is this normal?" he asked as we drove home. "According to Jennifer, yes. It can last for several weeks or even months." "Months?" "But it gets better, and the treatment program will help you learn to cope with it." Tyler stared out the window at the familiar landscape, the suburban developments and strip malls and fast food restaurants that made up our corner of America. "It's weird being back in the regular world." "What do you mean?" "In detox, everyone understood what was wrong with me. Out here, I just look like a normal person again." But he wasn't a normal person anymore, if he ever had been. He was a recovering addict, someone whose brain had been rewired by drugs and who would have to work every day for the rest of his life to stay clean. That was a reality I was still learning to accept. Sarah had taken the day off work to be home when Tyler got back. She'd cooked his favorite dinner, meatloaf and mashed potatoes, and bought ice cream for dessert. It felt almost normal, like we were celebrating something, instead of preparing for our son to leave for residential treatment. "How was detox?" Sarah asked over dinner. "Horrible at first, then just really boring. Lots of group therapy and educational videos about addiction." "Did you learn anything useful?" Tyler considered the question. "I learned that I'm not the only 19-year-old who got hooked on pills. I learned that addiction runs in families sometimes." He looked at me when he said that last part. "Dad, did Grandpa have drinking problems?" I'd never talked to Tyler about my father's alcoholism, never wanted to burden him with that family history. But apparently it was relevant now. "Yeah," I said, "he did." "How bad?" "Bad enough that it killed him." Tyler nodded, like this explained something he'd been wondering about. The counselor said addiction has a genetic component, that some people are just more susceptible to it. That doesn't excuse what happened, I said. I know, but it helps explain it. After dinner, Tyler went to his room to pack for New Horizons. Sarah and I cleaned up the kitchen in silence, both of us thinking about the month ahead. "Are we doing the right thing?" Sarah asked. "I think so. I hope so." "What if it doesn't work?" "Then we try something else." But privately, I was terrified that it wouldn't work, that we'd spend money we didn't have, and Tyler would come home in 30 days just as addicted as when he left, that this was all just expensive theater, a way to make ourselves feel like we were doing something meaningful while our son slowly destroyed his life. Tyler came downstairs with a duffel bag and a nervous expression. "I guess I'm ready." We decided to drive him up to New Horizons the next morning, spend the day getting him settled and attending the family orientation session. It would be our last time together for a month. "Tyler," Sarah said, "I want you to know how proud I am of you for getting help. Even though I stole from you guys and lied to you for months, especially because of that. It takes courage to admit you have a problem and ask for help." Tyler hugged her, and I could see tears in both their eyes. "I'm going to miss you, Mom." "I'm going to miss you too, but I'll write letters every day." "They don't allow letters for the first week," Tyler said. "Complete isolation from family during the initial phase." A week without any contact with our son? A week of not knowing how he was doing, whether he was struggling, whether he was even still there. "But after that?" I asked. "1 letter a week, 1 phone call on Sundays." It seemed like cruel punishment for the whole family, but I supposed that was the point. Recovery required breaking old patterns, including patterns of family dysfunction. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Tyler alone in that detox room, going through withdrawal while I'd been at home complaining about my own pain. I thought about all the times I'd been too busy or too tired or too frustrated to really listen when he'd tried to talk to me. I thought about the kid who used to follow me around construction sites, asking endless questions about tools and techniques and when he could start helping with real projects. Where had that kid gone? When had he turned into someone who stole pills and sold drugs just to get through the day? Maybe at New Horizons, I'd learn the answer to that question. Maybe they'd teach me how to be a better father, how to rebuild a relationship with a son I felt like I'd lost somewhere along the way. Or maybe Tyler would come home in 30 days just as addicted as when he left, and we'd be back to square one with less money and fewer options. Either way, we'd find out soon enough. The drive to New Horizons took 2 hours through winding mountain roads and small towns that looked like postcards. Tyler slept most of the way, curled up in the passenger seat like he used to when he was little and we'd take family trips to his grandmother's house. The facility looked even more peaceful in the morning light, mist rising from the lake and early sunlight filtering through the pine trees. It was hard to believe this beautiful place was where people came to recover from addiction. The admission process took most of the day. Medical forms and psychological evaluations and orientations about rules and expectations. Tyler would share a cabin with 3 other men, attend therapy sessions 6 hours a day, participate in work therapy and recreational activities. No contact with family for the first 7 days, the counselor explained. After that, 1 supervised phone call per week and 1 letter. "What about emergencies?" Sarah asked. "We'll contact you immediately if there's any medical or psychological emergency. Otherwise, the communication restrictions are firm." It felt harsh, cutting Tyler off from his family when he was at his most vulnerable. But I suppose that was the point, learning to cope without the familiar crutches and enablers that had allowed his addiction to flourish. When it came time to say goodbye, Tyler looked younger than his 19 years, scared and uncertain despite his earlier confidence about wanting treatment. "You can do this," I told him. "What if I can't?" "Then you keep trying until you can." Sarah hugged him one more time, whispered something in his ear that made him smile despite his tears. "I love you guys," he said. "We love you too," Sarah and I said together. We watched him walk toward his cabin with his duffel bag and a counselor, disappearing into the treatment program that would either save his life or just postpone the inevitable. The drive home was quiet. Both Sarah and I lost in our own thoughts about what came next. A month of not knowing how Tyler was doing. A month of family therapy sessions and education about addiction. A month of waiting to see if residential treatment would work or if we'd just spent money we didn't have on false hope. "Do you think he'll make it?" Sarah asked as we pulled into our driveway. I looked at our house, at Tyler's bedroom window, at the basketball hoop in the driveway where he used to practice for hours every day after school. "I think he'll try," I said, "and that's more than we had yesterday." It wasn't much, but it was something. For the first time in months, maybe years, Tyler was getting professional help for problems that were too big for our family to solve alone. He was surrounded by people who understood addiction, who'd seen other kids like him get clean and stay clean. Whether it would work remained to be seen, but at least now he had a chance. And sometimes a chance is all you get.